Hey, mamas. Good morning. Good Monday morning to you. It's just Julie and I today, and Anita. Anita's still hanging out with us. Kayla has 2-year-old checkups for those twin babies of hers, so she's doing mama things this morning. Julie, cat got your tongue?
Good morning. Sorry, I was making sure that I could monitor the comments in case we had comments come in during the chat. So it was, anyway. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, moms.
Yes, we have Anita, finally.
She's
always been here. Yeah.
I'm always in the background, yeah.
All right, so we are going to talk to you a little bit about homeschooling this morning. It's not going to be the full-on kind of, I don't know, Julie, what do you have in mind me doing for the moms? Is it not like a workshop, but like a longer Q&A?
An Ellen talk.
An Ellen talk.
So not a TED talk, but like an Ellen talk. And probably I will pose some questions, and then we'll have an opportunity for any moms that have any other questions they want to, bring in through the chat or submit, kind of go over and just learn more about homeschooling or learn how to improve their homeschooling experience.
Got it. All right. So before you start with the questions that you have for me, I'm going to give them a little bit of background on our homeschooling journey. So my daughter is now in college. She's graduating in May with her teaching degree. We started homeschooling when she was 5. She attended about 1 week of kindergarten at a private school where we lived on the other side of town. And we homeschooled the entirety of her schooling journey. She graduated at 16, went off to college. She turned 17 that summer, went to school, and she's just done amazing. When she entered college, she was I think the top 15 in her incoming freshman class. It was like a special scholar, some academic category. Now I cannot remember what it was, but academically, it was a success for her. Socially, it was a success. It was just a success all the way around. I am a full-on homeschooling mom, meaning that we did it the entire time. She's never even been to a public school at all. I don't have anything against public schools. Multiple members of my family were either in administration or they were public school teachers. I attended public school. My daughter is going to teach in public school. So let me just make it really clear. I don't think there's one schooling journey for everybody, whether it's homeschooling, private or public. There's not a one size fits all, and you'll never hear me say that. So that being said, I am very pro homeschooling because it was an amazing journey for our family. It was right for us, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and she wouldn't change a thing. So that's a little bit about my background, and Julie you're going to learn some more through the questions that she's going to ask, but I just wanted to give you that to start with.
So I think first of all, question is, how did you decide to start homeschooling?
Okay, so I'm just going to be completely straight with you guys. I am pro parental choice when it comes to vaccines. I am not anti-vaccine or pro-vaccine. I am pro parental choice. The summer before she was going to enter kindergarten was when it was called the swine flu. So I know that I'm a little older than a lot of the moms in here. So you may or may not remember anything about it, but it was all over. The swine flu was like some sort of big deal. And they developed a vaccine in about 30 seconds for this thing. And the private school where she went followed the academic calendar and a lot of guidelines of HISD because it was in close proximity. So we were thinking at that point heavily during the summer about homeschooling, because when I found all this out, I called my husband and I said, there's a chance the LSA is going to ask her to have the swine flu vaccine. he's like, you mean the one that's been on the market for 30 seconds? I'm like, yes. He's like, absolutely not. That's a hard no. I mean, it wasn't tested. They just literally threw it out. And school rolls around and they determined that they were not going to require it. So we went ahead and put her in, enrolled her for her kindergarten year, put her in school. And we were about a week into the school year, maybe only 2 or 3 days. And we were at home and she was furiously running all over the house, like cutting things out, assembling this big book of stuff. And by the end of the evening, we were like, "What, honey, what are you doing?" She said, I did the A to Z project. And I'm like, okay, well, what is that? So they were going to take a letter a week and learn about the letter and delve into the letter, like A for apple. And then, whatever you do in kindergarten these days, I guess. And she had done the entire project in that one night. And I'm not saying my kid is like Elon genius level, but she clearly was not going to be challenged that year whatsoever. And so that night after she went to bed, he said, "So what is she going to do for the rest of the year? Like literally what's going to happen?" He said, "Are you ready to homeschool her?" And I'm like, "Well, I have nothing planned, literally nothing, but sure, let's do it." So I went to pick her up from school the next day, and she had been hearing us talk about homeschooling, but had never said a word. And I explained to her what we were going to do. And I said, do you want another couple of weeks with your friends? Do you want another couple of months? I don't have anything together. Like, I don't even know what we're going to do. So, or we can, you can be done now. Like, what's your preference? And I fully expected her to say she wanted to stay a little bit longer, so she could be with her friends. She's like, nope, done, ready to go. So that's how we knew for her it was right, because I was about to have a 5-year-old bored out of her head just for the whole entire year. So that was our journey. That was how I knew it was right for me. I have over the years seen many, many other reasons that moms find homeschooling be right for their kid. Whether it is, sometimes it's illnesses, sometimes it's their health, and it just is going to be more taxing than it's worth to get their kids up at 6 a.m. to get ready for school and stay there all day. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's anxiety, being around such large groups of kids all day long at certain ages is, for that kid, maybe not the right thing. And maybe they can adjust later and grow out of it, and then they go to school later, or maybe they never do. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to function in the world. It means that they may need a different academic setting to learn, right? Some people do it for religious reasons. Some people do it because they're scared of what's going on in the schools these days. They literally do not know what to expect when they send their kids to school and what kind of influences. And that can be coming from a completely non-religious person as well. So those are a lot of the things I've seen as well as my own experience and why we did it.
We actually have a question I want to make sure that we get to. And I think it's the next, it's a common question that I think a lot of people have. Basically, talk about connecting with other moms and connecting your kids with other like-minded families. Were you a part of a co-op? How did you connect and keep Zoe socialized, or what are you seeing now that people are doing that you would recommend? And then also tell us what you tried that you knew it didn't work and how you knew it didn't work for you guys.
Okay, so a little bit about how I did homeschooling with her. So she always, without fail, every year of her academic education was not just at home with me all week. And that looked different every year. So when kindergarten, we did not do anything outside because we were still figuring that out, right? But that doesn't mean that I didn't join every single homeschool group I could find. We schooled at 5, Monday through Thursday. Fridays was free Friday. Okay. So Fridays was go into the city and go to the museum, go to the plays, go to the park, have a play date, go to a bouncy place, like literally just whatever she wanted to do. There was no way at 5 that we couldn't get schooling done in 4 days a week. And that's not even 8 to 5 every day, right? So I let her sleep late. She did not get up at the crack of dawn. Like, she had a more relaxed schedule, and we just did school. So starting in first grade, she always had outside classes. When she was very little, some of them were academic and some were your enrichment classes. So like maybe first grade, I think she had a science class, a government class, and art. And when I say government, social studies, that's really what I should have said. And there was a combination of that sort of thing up until probably 5th or 6th grade. So we skipped a grade somewhere in there. And I honestly don't know which one it is. We think it was 5th-ish grade. Then there was a point when we moved up to this side of town where everything academic for years I handled. And then she would do archery and art and maybe something else at a place called Extraordinary Education. It's right over here in Magnolia. And then a little bit after that, it was a combination of me teaching her. And then she had classes where it was like a professor on the other end of the computer. Sometimes those were self-paced. Sometimes they were live. There's literally 150 ways, that's probably on the low end, of how you can homeschool your child. So what I did, because I only had one and I was helping my husband with our business at home, I did not do a co-op. So that's one of your least expensive ways to homeschool, because basically all the parents are responsible for your different subjects. The way I did it is I took her to a place where I paid for classes. I dropped her off. She attended the classes. I went back and picked her up. Then later in the years, she also did dual credit through both Laterno and Lone Star. Some of it was online. Some of it was in person at the Montgomery campus off of 242. So there were so many different ways in which she got out there and she developed relationships. So it was the homeschooling groups that had social activities and then the classes she attended. One of the really neat things about homeschooling is that, as opposed to school, if they're 6, they go to school and everybody they interact with is 6. If they're 7, everybody is 7, so forth. In homeschooling, you are thrown into classes and groups where not everybody is the same age. So you learn even better how to relate to adults, younger kids, older kids, and your peer group that's exactly your age. I connected with those moms especially when she was younger, because if we were going to the park, I, of course, had to stay. Once she was older, then it was different. You know, she did a lot more without me with all of her friends. I want to make sure I'm getting Yolanda's question. Connect with other. Okay, I think I did answer it. Getting the kids together to do their work together, that right there could be something like the co-op or the classes that I talked about. When we have our larger scale session, the Ellen Talk, as Julie calls it, I also want to invite one of my homeschooling mom friends on with me, and she's a homeschool coach, and she's also teaching in one of the hybrid type schools. So you've got different things like the University Model School, and a lot of them are offshoots of that, where you don't send your child to a class 5 days a week. And she didn't either, even though what we attended was not technically a University Model School. She didn't go 5 days anywhere. She might have one thing on Tuesday, Thursday. She might have something else on Monday, Wednesday, whatever that was like. The University Model School has the kids either at school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And then the parent is responsible for like the homework and all of that good stuff.
Is that like Legacy?
Yes, Legacy.
Okay, it's like a hybrid
school.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think Evergreen Classical is similar, right? Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. And let me see where Allison teaches, because I kind of, no, she doesn't teach at Evergreen. She is, go ahead and ask me then. Legacy Oaks Academy is where she is. She teaches high school English. I mean, there are so many more, even when, I mean, Zoe's been out of school for 4 years. The number of opportunities for you to have your student taught by other adults, whether it's in a co-op or a school like that, have just multiplied. You know, one of the things that always was important to me is I didn't want to be that homeschool mom that was the only influence in my child's life. I wanted to surround her by adults that would pour into her and be a sounding board for her in ways that I couldn't. Not because I don't think I have a lot of shortcomings as a mom, but you never want them to be the total sum of you only. You know, that's not how you grow a good human.
Well, and you also want her to feel comfortable and have, I think children need several strong, stable, reliable adults to create a full, well-rounded person, not just their own mom and dad. You know, I think that's a good thing. But you did mention you joined a lot of groups. Are you talking Facebook groups, just connecting?
No. Okay. So back then, I mean, of course there was Facebook, but it was no. Yes and no. Most likely those groups are on Facebook too, but we were meeting in real life. We were meeting.
How did you meet them?
So the ones that I joined, I basically just got online and I was like homeschooling groups in Clear Lake, League City, Friendswood, Pearland area. And I found them. And at that time, the ones we were a part of had like dues that you would pay annually because you could see the calendar that was put together. You know, they were not, because these are kids, they were not going to put a calendar out for public view. So everybody, predators online, would know where all these kids were. So you had to have access to all of this. Now, more than likely, I bet that those types of groups would be strictly on Facebook. But like if I were to just Google, let's see, homeschooling groups near me, most of what it's bringing up are the schools. But then if I click on support groups, oh, there's Tomball Christian Homeschoolers, Southeast Texas Homeschool Association, Smoothing the Way, PALS, North Houston Charlotte Mason Group, MASH Homeschool Group, Little Arrows, Homewood Christian Academy, Homewood Christian Youth Association. Okay, so I'm going to address one thing real quick, just so everybody is very clear about this. Homeschooling is not just for Christian families. Especially in Houston, there are secular homeschooling groups. I will be honest and tell you that the majority of what you see out there will be faith-based, because that's where most of the movement started. But it is less than it was. So for example, if you were to go to a homeschool convention back when I was homeschooling her, 95% of everything you would find would be somewhat faith-based, at least a little. Now you're probably looking at more like 75-25, or you might even go 60-40 as far as resources that are available, no matter what type of journey that you want to take. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. It is because people homeschool for different reasons. Just like I said, you could be, as a Christian or non-Christian, either way, concerned about the influences in a school. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. And a good curriculum. So the only faith-based curriculum that we really used was in the either science or history or government realm. when it came to everything else, I was not that homeschool mom that was like, I need it in everything. I need it in my math, right? Like that was not my jam. I was a much more well-rounded one. When we went to our very first homeschool convention, my husband's like, please tell me you're not going to start churning your own butter and wearing like a denim jumper.
Okay, listen.
But churning your own butter now is the way to go, right? But like at that point, it was associated with very strict Christian doctrine. People that didn't want their kids to socialize with other kids, the Duggars think the Duggars, right? So that was what it was associated with. Now, churning your own butter is just to protect your own dang health, right? So whole different situation. But my point in that is that you can take this journey as a homeschool parent, family, mom, student, whatever, in so many different ways. And most of the homeschool moms that I know will answer your questions and guide you, whether you want to take a faith journey or a secular journey or something in between. Like I said, we did not count crosses in math as an example.
Is that curriculum?
I don't even know. I was just trying to make a point.
Oh, okay. I was like, holy smokes.
So
get in the weeds with that. Like, come on now.
Yeah. One of the things you asked was how we picked. Did you ask how we picked curriculum or how I knew?
I am interested in how you sort of found what curriculum you want, because I think there's this level of, or this understanding of homeschooling that it's sort of like collect all the curriculum, and you can really get down a rabbit trail of overcomplicating it, too many resources, you spend too much money on books, and then you didn't like this one, you didn't like this one. Is there a way, how do you narrow down what curriculum is right? Can you go look at it somewhere?
That is such a long answer because I went both directions. I was actually a curriculum reviewer. I had a blog and I reviewed curriculum, much to my daughter's chagrin, because she hated that, because that just meant she tried out so many things and she's like, stop. So I know I fell into the trap of doing it, but I also know how to tell you not to do it. And I didn't do it to the extreme, right? Like we try. I will say there's a couple of different resources, and this will be one that we delve into more on the other one because it's so long. So I lived at the time we started homeschooling on the south side of town. So I went to the Home Education Partnership, which at that time had a bookstore and a school. Now the bookstore is no longer, it is just a school. Up on this side of town, we have a large homeschooling store, and I think it's called the Homeschool Store. I'll look it up in advance. It is in a modular building off of 1960, but it is enormous, and they have everything that could ever be purchased, I think, as far as homeschool curriculum, used, new, etc.
I'm looking it up right now. Oh, it's cute.
Yeah. If you were faith-based, every year there is what they call the Texas Homeschool Coalition, and they have a conference, and I think it's coming up in May or June. I would need, if you are a secular homeschooler, I don't care. I was a faith-based one, but I don't care that you are or not. Reach out to me and I will take a look at that conference and see if I think you would find what you're looking for there if you're going from that lens. Because I think it is different, but I'm not sure it's different enough. So that would mean we just need different resources. Like I'd probably, if it were me, I'd probably Google secular homeschooling curriculum, and secular just means neutral to me. It just means you're not bringing in any sort of outside faith perspectives. And the reason I'm talking about this so much is, again, because if you start down the rabbit hole of homeschooling and you don't know that that's what you're looking for or not, you may assume that that's literally all that's out there and it's for Christian homeschooling families. And that is not the case. It used to be, but now it is not. So no matter your reasoning for wanting to homeschool, there are routes for you. There is curriculum for you. There are groups for you. It will be harder in Montgomery County to find the completely secular ones, although I know that they are there. And I believe that there is a new school that has opened up that is very secular, very inclusive, but I don't know that they are considering themselves a homeschool. I think it might be more of a private school. So
What is it called? Do you know?
I don't remember. I'd have to look on someone else's profile to find it. But there's something out there, honestly, for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And your reason for homeschooling is a very personal one. And it doesn't matter why you want to do it. You don't have to answer to anybody. I will say this, in Texas, you are not required to ask the school if you can withdraw your child. We are the easiest state in the country to homeschool in, which can be good and bad. I think that it's bad if we have a family that is going to just homeschool out of laziness and their child is affected.
Unschooling. Yeah.
But even unschooling, okay, let's address unschooling and deschooling real quick. So if you had a child in school for 5 or 6 years and you said, hey, we are going to take this child out and we're going to homeschool, you are going to have to do what's called deschooling if you're going to do it properly. And that means just almost quitting anything for a little period of time. Everybody's period of time is different. I'm not talking about a year, but at least a few weeks, at least maybe a month, and just do nothing academic. Just figure out what your child is interested in. Figure out where they are in all their academic areas. Figure out what drives them. Where do they thrive? What do they need? What were they lacking? All of that. And then unschooling, I think that there's probably some times unschooling is called for depending on the family. Like if you were a true farm, if you lived out in the middle of nowhere and you were on a farm and that farm was your family's business and your children were going to be farmers, there might be some unschooling there because of what your life looks like. But that doesn't mean, in my opinion, you don't bring in things that are going to help your students with life later. You cannot assume that farm is not going to die out at some point. They have to be prepared to enter a workforce of some sort. So that's my take on that. Unschooling can get a bad rap, but it can also be something that, could be necessary. I don't think in what we call suburbia, our little towns outside of the greater Houston area, I don't think unschooling is where it's at. So for what that's worth.
We're almost to the half hour, but I want you to do like rapid fire myth busting of homeschoolers. So I want you to give us some myths that people believe about homeschooling, and you're like, no, that's not true.
Real fast. Myths about homeschooling. Okay, I will tell you, number one, unsocialized. My daughter, y'all both know her. Does she seem like she was a weird, awkward kid at any point in her life?
No.
Absolutely.
Nope.
If you homeschool properly, you are turning down more social activities than you are otherwise because there's so many out there. Unprepared for college. I think I already addressed that one. Colleges love homeschoolers. The myth is that they are socially awkward and lack social skills. Typically they are. Now, I'm not saying that there are not those crazy, weird, awkward homeschoolers out there, because they are, but there are also crazy, weird, unsocialized public schoolers and private schoolers. So just put that out there. But if your family has done a good job, you are emerging as probably an above average student in social, emotional, and psychological development, honestly. Parents aren't qualified to teach. Know your limits. Okay. Know what you can and cannot do. I wasn't qualified to teach calculus, but I found somebody who was. I wasn't qualified to teach biology, but I found somebody who was. Was I qualified to teach my child how to read at 5? Yes, I was.
Yeah.
So know what you can and cannot do and find the resources, for that. Only religious people homeschool. I think that we covered that. Homeschooling families hardly spend any money. Okay, that's not true. At least where I was. Children never asked to be homeschooled. My daughter did.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, she reminded me later when we had another conversation that she had actually asked me about it when she was 3. And I don't remember that at all. So I hopefully hit some of the highlights there.
Yeah. And I want to cover into when we do our Ellen talk, talking about, because you're going to bring Allison too, right? And she's a homeschool coach.
I'm going to ask her to. Yes. She teaches at a homeschool school, and she's also what you consider a homeschool coach.
So a few of the topics, just to sort of get you ladies interested. One thing I want to cover that I'm seeing so much of, this is not my personal experience, but I have talked to so many moms that are considering or have switched to a homeschool style model because we're especially seeing younger boys, I'm talking 6 to 10, who can't sit still, they're not getting enough movement, and they are now being labeled, ADHD, they're not tuned in enough, and is homeschooling the better fit for them to learn but still be able to move their bodies? I want her to address that.
I'll talk about that too. So
Okay.
one of my very close friends who I did a lot of homeschooling with, so Mariah's mom, Sydney, you've met them, and Zoe, we spent so much time with them during our homeschooling journey when the kids were small, especially. She has a son named Israel. If Israel had been in school, they would have tried to medicate him.
Right.
He was always all over the place. So what she would do is she would do a little math, and then she's like, run the stairs. Do a little bit more math, run the stairs. Do some more subject, run around outside. By the time that he was a teenager, all of that was gone because he was just a little boy growing with a lot of energy. But he would have been labeled a problem kid, and he is at his university on a scholarship, high academic scholarship. He was an Eagle Scout. Like he turned out to be an amazing young man, but had he been in school, they would have labeled him and tried to medicate him.
And so many moms,
and she was able to say, I know you just have extra energy, and I'm not going to let that happen to you. Run it out. And then he could focus.
Yeah. And trying to, I think, and then the other side of that I want to speak to is, for instance, my 2 girls. Now, if you guys don't know, my daughter, my oldest, does go to private school for 1st grade. And then I have a newly 3-year-old, just different temperaments as a whole. My oldest one has said that she has interest in homeschooling, which we have not tapped into yet. We're not discussing it yet. But because that's just her style. And then my youngest, I think, would be so deprived. She asks me, when can she go to school? Can she go more to school? She talks about her friends. She thrives in that environment. So I want you in the full talk to talk about it's not one size fits all, even in your own family.
Yes, I have known multiple families that homeschooled one or more and public schooled or private schooled one or more. The only drawback to that is if you are homeschooling. Well, if you are homeschooling to be able to, so Luke, my daughter's boyfriend, one of the reasons that they started is because his dad was a pilot and he was always gone. So they wanted to be able to take off when he was home and let Luke and Emily school when he was gone. If you have one child in one or more in a school and one or more at home, you cannot fully take advantage of that relaxed lifestyle where you're on and off. You are beholden to the actual schedule of the schools that you attend. So up until she was 10, we did things like long breaks in the fall, went hard all summer because it was so freaking hot. Once she hit 10 or 11, she said, I don't want this anymore. I want summer. I want to know I'm done in May and I start again in August. I'm like, fine. Nope. I mean, it was all about what she needed. And I let her make a lot of calls throughout the journey, and she made the right ones. She made what was right for her, and it worked for me too. So there was no issue. So there you go.
There's about 300 more questions I think we could go over. So that's what we're going to do in Ellen Talk. Hopefully we can bring Allison in, because I also want to talk about how to know when you need to pivot when things aren't working. What about the constraints of being a working mother and homeschooling? So some of those things we really want to tap into, because those are the needs right now. And Heather's asking if she can watch this back later. Yes, we have it saved to Facebook, and I think we have the YouTube channel up, right, Anita? Yes. So all of these you guys can save. If you have questions for Ellen, the expert, or the homeschool resource as well, or anything else, submit them. You can, DM us. You can make a comment, DM if it's like a more private question. We won't share your name.
Why don't you start a thread? Let's pick a date later today when we're going to do this, and then start a thread where they can put their questions. And if they have a private question, they can DM us. Yeah.
So I really want to kind of keep it going, because I think homeschooling is a big trend specifically in our group. And then some moms who maybe have some littles that are coming to that age. And so let's, help them get started, like where to get started, when to get started. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Look forward to helping you guys with this. Have an awesome Monday.